I'd like to call to order this meeting of the RSU 25 School Board. Welcome you to our November meeting. Would you please all join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jim, would you please take the roll call?
I will. Mr. Foster.
I am here.
Mr. Burgess. Present. Ms. Foster.
Here.
Ms. Rickman.
Yes.
Ms. Asbury.
Here.
Mr. Claire.
Here.
Mr. Frazier is absent. And we have Mr. Cuff, who will be appointed by the Orland Select Board on Thursday night to replace Ms. Burgess' seat. And he is here tonight to observe and start figuring out what's going on. So,
Welcome. Thank you. This is the time that we have our public participation. If you would like to participate, you can email for public comment at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. Please ask that you direct your emails to that public comment and not to any member directly, because that is the only email that we are currently monitoring. Are there any public comments at this time?
seeing none there, but I suspect we have somebody in the audience this evening.
I do. I have a letter to read from my grandson, if you'll bear with me.
Please come up to the podium, and that way the owl can catch you. And we usually have everyone introduce themselves by just stating your name to the record and what town you're from.
I'm Carolyn Seidel, and I live in Bucksport. I had it ready and then my phone just. Sorry.
Appreciate that. Happens to me all the time.
Here it is. And bear with me, I might get a little weepy. To whom it may concern, my name is David Gross. I am a former wrestler and now certified wrestling official out of Bucksport High School. I am emailing everyone in support of a 2021-22 wrestling season because I hold this sport near and dear to me as it had a lasting impact on my life. I now continue my education at the University of Maine, where I play football and study environmental horticulture with a concentration in landscape design and a minor in business management. There are many things I learned while wrestling that I still use in my everyday life. My wrestling credentials consist of 2 Class B state titles, all state titles, Maine state record for the fastest pin, a 2nd place finish at the New England Championships. But wrestling is far more than just winning titles. I have witnessed wrestling touch the lives of many kids who have lacked support at home find support they need in the wrestling room. I have witnessed autistic kids who can't let anyone touch them, turn into high-level wrestlers placing at tournaments. I have witnessed kids with tough home lives willing to walk to practice in the woods to compete because the sport means so much to them. Wrestling gives a chance for many kids to feel that they belong to something, and this is why I believe there needs to be a wrestling season. Wrestling has taught me many things over my 12-year career. It taught me that with hard work and determination, anything is possible. It taught me to strive to be great in all aspects of life and to never be satisfied. I believe wrestling should be held to the same standards that other indoor winter sports are held to. It truly would not be fair to single out a sport of wrestling and make these kids sit out another season. Please, while making your decision, understand the impact wrestling has had on the young lives of boys and girls, and they need this sport now more than ever. Sincerely, David Gross.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to hear Dave's gonna do some refereeing too, because
Yes, yes.
desperately need referees in
Yeah.
the wrestling. That's great.
And he's even got a couple of football players.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Do we have any other public comments?
I'm not seeing any, Sue. Okay, if we have any more during the meeting, we can circle back
Sounds good.
at this point in time.
All right, so then we can go to adjustments to the agenda.
We do have some, my apologies. Please add Lauren Lugden under resignation, M1A for BMS Title I Ed Tech 3, and Linda Silsby from the food service program. And if we could please add M1B nomination, Nicholas Schlosser as BMS Boys B Team Basketball, Mike Gosselon, BHS Assistant Indoor Track, and Kay Ann Rose, food service.
Now would be the time to have a nomination for the approval of the minutes. And seeing as how our first on most of our nominations is not here,
That's a this evening, yeah.
we have Abby raising her hand.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written from the October 19th, 2021 meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes? All those opposed?
My name is misspelled.
My apologies. Okay, cut and paste.
We'll make sure that we-
approve it.
That's
make
how I
sure that we
remember
get
you
that
spelling the
fixed.
name that week.
Like what? Throw me. Otherwise, yes.
Jim, do we have any communications or correspondence?
Very light communications this month, so no.
Okay. Superintendent's report?
You have my report. Just take a moment if we could, just kind of talk about the pool testing. And spend a lot of time looking at the data that we've been able to glean from our experiences up through last Friday. We had 58 positive cases of COVID across the district, PK through 12. That happens to match up exactly to the Hancock County rate per 1,000. Thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The pool testing, and you have the leader of pool testing. I'm going to recognize Sue Bennett, who didn't realize the term other assigned duties on her job description would lead her into leading the pool testing for us, but she's done a great job of that. We actually have over 400 students currently enrolled, participating, and there's been over 2,293 pool tests administered. We've only found 4 positives out of that pool testing. That's well below 1% pool testing. Now, what's interesting is all 4 of those folks that were identified as positive were all asymptomatic. So the pool testing is doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's identifying folks that maybe have an infection and recognizing that early enough so we're not spreading it to the general population. So that's been very much a positive. I think it's been very, very valuable and identified in my report. I talked about 1 second. Students participating in pool testing were able to stay in school and weren't required to quarantine. And as we've seen across the state, some of the schools have had to shut down because of close contacts, because they weren't doing pool testing. we've been able to stay open. We've been able to have kids in person, which is so critical, which is a good thing. And lastly, we had a number of athletes participate in pool testing this fall, who, if they weren't in pool testing, would have had to quarantine and miss one or more games in the fall season. And that could be devastating to the teams. So all in all, I think it's been a very successful venture. It's helped us through Sue's work. It's very efficient. Yes.
Did you collect any demographics? Probably not on the families of the kids that are pool testing?
No.
Okay, it would just be interesting to know if there's only 4 out of all those times she tested. Like, you know, just vaccination statuses of adults and stuff like that.
We haven't delved into it that deeply.
Yeah, it's maybe not worth it, but it's just interesting. That's all I wanted.
Another data point that I pointed out in my report is average daily attendance has been pretty solid. We've been 93% every day. That's a little bit lower than pre-COVID, but very, very good overall. Ideally, we'd like to see 95% attendance rate. I have other things we'll talk about later on in the agenda I put in my report, but happy to answer any questions folks may have.
Any questions for Jen?
Before we go on, I just want to say we are working with Bucksport Regional Health Clinic. They'll be holding a vaccination clinic for 5 to 11-year-olds primarily this coming Saturday from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock. There is a registration portal. We sent that information out to folks, and you can get that off our website as well. But the health center is willing to vaccinate folks at maybe some of the 12 to 18-year-olds or even adults.
We have all 3.
And there's a survey too. There's a assignment portal and a survey. I think the survey might be for them to make sure they have enough vaccine.
Just to kind of get a handle on what they need for vaccines.
Yeah.
I'll be at the one on the 11th.
I'm-
working on it.
I'm not sure, Mary. And now, are they considering, like, say, I'm vaccinated and I wanted to go, would they be considering that as a booster? And would I be able to go in for that? Or would, like, so I've already had my vaccine,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So if I wanted to attend this clinic and I wanted my whole family to go, would this be considered a booster shot also? Or would it just be me getting the fall, the same as like any flu virus vaccine?
It depends on what we
We
do.
will have flu shots there, but for the COVID vaccine, if you need your booster, you would get, as far as the Moderna goes, a half dose, which is the booster. The J&J, I'm not sure what the booster on that one is.
There's no booster for J&J. You either get Moderna or you get Pfizer.
Oh, right. And the Pfizer dose is 0.3.
So you would be openly giving. people
But I think
We're not
what
gonna
she's
turn
trying to ask
anybody
is,
away.
can she sign up for a boot to get a
Yeah,
booster?
that's what
Yes.
I'm, because I
We're not
wasn't
gonna turn
sure.
people away.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I didn't see it in the literature.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, that's not posted per se, obviously, now it's a public meeting, but it's not necessarily posted, but I mean, we're do as much as we can handle.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
And we're having as many MAs that can go attend.
I think you can answer
Okay.
that.
Their primary focus is the 5 to
Right,
11-year-olds.
Yes,
but
yeah.
Yeah.
But if
They're
open-
willing to work with anybody, which is
Right.
great. And it's nice that they're willing to do it right here in town.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jen before we move on? Perfect. All right, board's chair report. I just wanted to take the time to say what a phenomenal fall season sports have had, particularly the soccer. I don't know for the girls who did amazingly well, if that was their best year ever, but it certainly was for the boys.
Yeah, they've reached the same level. once.
So they've reached this level once before. The boys, this is the best that they've ever done. And really was just a great year. And as to the pool testing, I know that that boys team would not have been able to have gotten as far as they had without the pool testing. It would have absolutely decimated the team. Had that not have happened, and they would not have gotten that far along. So as we go into our winter season, for any student athletes who are considering signing up for the pool testing or not, I would strongly urge you to sign up for the pool testing. Because if you care about your sport, that is the best way for you to make sure that your team is able to participate. On another note, we have a soon-to-be board member. And from the same community, we have a board member who has joined the prestigious 12-year club. So we have gotten a certificate here that I'd like to present to you.
Thank you very much. Well, 12 short years.
So you're almost to the Millard Clement level.
No, I don't know. What was it, 40?
Yeah,
Millard had 43 years of
43 years.
school board service for the town of Waltham.
that's fantastic. So we haven't gotten that medal for
You
you
know,
yet.
that's probably not going to be achievable.
Some records you just don't reach. right?
Yeah,
But we thank you anyway. Dan.
thank you. Appreciate that.
And that is my report. Next, we can move on to committee reports. Curriculum committee,
Well, this will be really quick because we would have met last Thursday, which was Veterans Day. So we did not have a meeting. Our next meeting is on December 16th. Anything? You'll hit them later anyway. Whatever you have.
finance committee met right before that meeting. We discussed our percentage of the budget spent. There are two lines that are a little bit overspent. One is regular education. That is mostly due to staffing around
Long-term absences.
long-term absences and the what do you call it? Substitutes.
Substitutes, yes.
There we go, substitutes. And the other is transportation. And transportation is mostly because of the way that these evil auditors want us to only show the expenses and not the net effect after we get our revenues back. When we budgeted the net figure. So I think the transportation will still be good. And hopefully, if we can keep people healthy, we can start to do something about the substitute market. Any questions on finance? Perfect. We've got policy.
Policy, we did meet. Got a couple of first reading policies coming forth this evening, along with, we had a conversation around our learning for students. Agenda item later on.
Are there any questions for policy? Okay. Facilities and grounds.
Yeah, we met last week and we had further discussions about the leaking walls on the middle school and working forward with that. And we talked a little bit about some heating issues that have been going on, that they've been working on and getting back up to fully running. And we talked about water testing that the state's now going to be requiring soon and how we're going to proceed with that. And we've reviewed the capital improvement projects for next budget year and kind of refining that down a little bit.
Do you have any questions on facilities? All right. We don't have Fraser here for HCTC. Is there anything to report?
No, their meeting for the month will be this coming Thursday.
Okay. And then we have the ad hoc committee for recognition.
Yes, we did meet. Mr. Frazier is the chair of that committee. Captured. We had conversation around about talking about Glenn Webb and recognizing him. We talked about what that might look like. Did not come to any conclusions. Also, the conversation also went into the fact that we don't really have any recognition mechanism for folks in the middle school, the Hall of Fame, all the things that we have and the policies that we already have existing in place are pretty much centered around the high school. And so we may look at developing some, talking about some policy or something around future recognition and how to handle that at the levels that we don't already kind of have verbiage around. So Mr. Frazier was going to bring forward some ideas that he has at our next meeting, and we'll report out the next meeting and what we come up with.
Okay. Are there any questions for ad hoc before we move on? No. Okay, then we can move on to administrator and principal reports. And according to my little sheet, first one I've got is Evelyn.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
You have a copy of my report in the folder. I just wanted to share with you that I'm excited with the data that Christina and Todd have shared with you in their reports tonight with our fall testing and the work of Mr. Morrill and his IT department to have all the technology go smoothly. It was an interesting fall, but I think you'll be pleased with the outcome when you read it in their reports. I also want to let you know we didn't meet in November because it was Veterans Day was our meeting day. We have a full agenda for December already, and I'll be sharing that with you soon. One of the pieces you'll be seeing that come forward to the board next month, our local recertification committee. Now that we're all back in person again, we've had a chance to have a couple of meetings, and we've updated that because the laws have changed on recertification, the categories have changed, and so much has changed. We decided to just go ahead and update the whole plan. We'll be taking a draft of that to the curriculum committee on December 16th, and then we'll be bringing that forward to you at the December board meeting, along with some names for you to appoint to those different groups. So already planning ahead, doing a lot, as you can see the calendar on here, a lot of training will be going on this spring in math and ELA, and getting those information and those pieces all ready to go as well. So I didn't know if you had any questions on my report this evening.
Any questions for Evelyn? Thank you, Evelyn.
No. Thank you, Tom.
Next, we have Andrew.
We're all sitting in those comfortable library chairs.
Yeah, those make the old library chairs in this room look like.
Have seen my board report. We've been very busy in special ed land. And as of today, we've had 159 IEP meetings. And that doesn't count the team meetings that we've had. So we've been very busy. Generally, we might do 300 a year. So I've only been in this for about 2 months, so. Yeah, so we've been busy testing and doing. We've done a lot of out of the box thinking. Staffing has been limited, you know, with some open positions, but everyone's doing a really nice job as far as special education teachers. The children are getting what they need. It's very fluid this year. As needs pop up, we go to the need and try to juggle them and spin plates. We're also trying to, Ms. Woods and I have really been looking at instruction, and especially design instruction that meet certain learning profile, and trying to get a consistency within the district so that we can make sure that our children get optimal growth from those pieces. We just sent 2 staff members to this prep too, so it was very reasonable. Linda Mood Bell, and that is a multisensory approach, but it hits it at a different angle. It teaches visualization and certain techniques where they can connect and build upon the sounds. OG, which is Orton Gillingham, is a theory, and a lot of the specially designed instruction that goes more phonetically based and it's a scope and sequence. So we're really trying to, as our population in the district shift, we're trying to make sure that we have all the tools to support our children. The NWAs have come, we're looking at that closely. I'll add in our report kind of a comparison of where Fed falls within their grade level peers and those pieces. We continue to work with our social emotional learning curriculum, trying to train our techs for the complex needs that our children have. And it's time for alternative assessment discussions, making sure that we stay and work through the profile, the criteria in order to make sure we stay within compliance and also meet the needs. Alternative assessment is for like the 1% of our special education population. And the way that tool or that assessment works, it measures it in a different way than the state high stakes pieces go. So, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Or?
Doesn't look it. Thank you. All right, next we've got Josh.
Evening, everyone. So yeah, my report, just a couple of things to highlight. Again, I just want to highlight end of the first quarter one. Even though the first quarter seemed like it took forever, it also went by way too fast. I mean, some of those days were really long. But again, every time we get to this time of year, we say we're a quarter of the way through. We're already talking about midterms and finals coming up here before too long, and Thanksgiving break. So, one thing we're pretty proud of, if we were to wind back the clocks a year ago, when I was giving the same report, I had told you when we ended, after we went fully remote, we ended that year with 365 incomplete grades headed into that fall, and we were able to recover a large majority of them. At the end of the first quarter, just in that first quarter alone, and a hybrid instruction, we had 277 incomplete grades. So knowing that a number of students had multiple incomplete grades, so that wasn't 277 different students. At the end of the first quarter this year, we only had 91 incomplete grades.
Wow.
So if you look at it, just being in person, a return to in-person instruction, you just look at, you're a third of the incomplete grades received, and that was over 54 students that received those. So, and I will say, just like any year, I mean, that's actually lower than a typical year for incomplete grades. Within the first 2 weeks, we'll have probably a third to 40% of those will be made up pretty quickly. A lot of students are just missing one summative exam that they need to come in and fix. So we'll see those incompletes disappear pretty quickly. Obviously, we don't want to have any incomplete grades, but I don't want to say that we're proud that we have 91 incompletes, but we're very happy that we're seeing a huge decrease compared to where we were last year. So having kids back in person with our teachers is working. So we will continue to chip away at that. Now, last night we were able to induct 12 members of our National Honor Society here in the library. Again, it was nice to have parents here, to have students here doing activities that were more normal, and to be able to induct those students. And then finally, Tom kind of, you keep stealing my thunder with the athletics, Tom, but we had very successful fall sports seasons, I mean, all the way around. Again, if you jump back a year ago when we didn't even know if we were going to have fall sports, or they just looked very different, and we weren't traveling places, and we didn't have real playoff systems, to see all of our teams compete and have not just good seasons, but banner years where they were better than they've ever done before. And I listed whether it's the football team in the playoffs, both soccer teams, our volleyball team, our golfers out there competing. We had a cross country runner that went to Vermont and competed in the New England. So we just had very, very successful fall sports seasons. And again, it wasn't perfectly normal. So they had to overcome a lot, people missing at different times because they were in quarantine or unable to compete. So
And just hats off to all our coaches and players on just really a fantastic year, and to Mr. Ward putting together an experience for them that truly was fantastic. So. No, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Josh? Thank you very much, folks. Next, we've got Todd.
Good evening, everyone. Gonna kind of go over my report back to front today. Wanted to just mention 2 donations that we received. One from Mr. Silvernail in honor of his father, specifically to the BMS Arts Program. That was a passion of his father's, and there was a nice donation that coincides very nicely with the restart of our after-school arts club. And so there'll be, some students who will benefit greatly from that. So we're appreciative. And then every year we also get a donation from Hannaford, the Hannaford Helps program that I think benefits at least 2 of the schools, maybe 3. Is Jewett part of it also? Yeah. So, and those funds are really useful to help support students and family in need. Programs like our backpack program are partially funded through that. So that's very helpful also. Last Wednesday, we had a really nice celebration and unveiling of the 6th grade History in the Making mural. We were hoping it could be a big community celebration with goldfish crackers and cheese and crackers and all that sort of stuff. But we figured with COVID, we probably should try to not pack the auditorium full of almost 500 people. So we did limit it to 6th grade students and their parents. And we had about 50 students and over 50 parents attend. It was a really nice moment. Every 6th grade student had some role in creating that mural. They either drew part of it, painted part of it, or did the writing that's part of it. And then some students helped kind of pull the curtain back panel by panel to see the mural, and that's going to get installed next month on the long white wall along the auditorium that goes down to the music room. So there'll be a piece of the school that they'll always have. And it was really neat. As I mentioned in my report, we saw some parents there that we've never seen at school events before. And so it was great that they were able to come and see their child, kind of have something that they were really proud of and could show off and celebrate. And it was also nice talking to the teachers, really gave the students a chance to talk about all this craziness that they've lived through the last 20 months with the rest of us. And, there was a place to process some of what they missed. It was also really nice because they noted those moments that they might not have had. There was a lot of like, I never knew my dad could cook like that sort of stuff that came out, and that those opportunities that they've had, and to kind of also recognize that even though this has been really hard, there's also been some nice moments that I think we can all point to, and these 6th graders got to identify those and share them with the community, which was nice. As Dr. Bollier highlighted, we did do previewed, I guess, we did do the fall NWEA testing. When we did the spring testing last year, we were still doing some hybrid and remote stuff. There was this remote testing option, which a lot of us were pretty skeptical of from the start, and it definitely proved to be less than effective. But our spring scores were not very good, and I think we all know why they wouldn't have been good last year. So we figured, well, we're back in person, we'll have some higher scores, but they can't possibly, it's just a month back in school. They can't really be back to where we were before. So when we got our results back, we were actually very pleasantly surprised that pretty much every grade showed some growth in at least one test subject. Multiple grades showed growth in all 3 test subjects. And in most cases, it was as high or higher than pre-COVID testing, which was very interesting to us. And this is one of the, if we were going just on the state assessment, we would just be comparing this fall to last spring. That's all the data that we would have if it was the old state assessment. But because this district has been doing NWA for 8 years, 10 years, somewhere in that range, We do have longitudinal data going back. It's the same test. It's the same, a 220 is still a 220. They do adjust the sort of the national average every 3 years, but we do have this longitudinal data that we don't have with any other assessment. And so we can look at the fall of 2021, our students tested higher in some cases than they did in the fall of 2019 or the spring of 2017. And it's not just like, how did Bucksport Middle School do now versus then? A lot of times it's the same kids, so we can go back, like this year's 8th graders, we can go back to their 4th grade scores and see what percentage of them were at or above grade level and compare that to now. And it's, I put the 8th grade charts in my report because it's a very clear, positive trend in all cases, not just this most recent assessment, but over the last 5 years. A few more kids this year are becoming proficient in meeting grade level standards. And when you look at it over the course of 5 years, that's a 10, 15, 20% increase in the percentage of kids who are at or above grade level standards. So it was a pleasant and very unexpected surprise when we started putting that together. Christina mentioned it at the A-team last week, and I was like, oh yeah, the same thing happened for us. It was really weird. We weren't expecting that. So now our task is we're going to talk with teachers because there are pieces of this pandemic education that aren't going away. And so there's pieces of this that seem to be working and we're not 100% sure why. So we really want to try and figure out why that is and not make a change that moves us away from that. Whatever it is that we're doing, we definitely want to keep doing within this pandemic interrupted, discontinuous educational setting. So, I think it all speaks to the fact that with everything going on, at the end of the day, we've got kids in classrooms, we've got teachers teaching them, we've got parents supporting them at home, and that's all continuing to happen and continuing to work. So sometimes it's easy to focus on the challenges and the negatives, but it's important to note that there are kids still learning, and that there's, it's not a huge disaster like we've been worried it might be. So we will take the positives where we can find them for sure.
Any questions for Todd? Thank you, Todd. Next we've got Christina.
Good evening, everyone. You have a copy of my report, and I also wanted to highlight fall NUIA testing as well. And then I kind of gave you some fun things in my report about some experiential learning that's going on at Miles Lane. And then I'll talk a little bit about the new design of our after-school program, which we couldn't do last year at all, but we're redesigning it this year. So first of all, I'll just kind of touch on what Todd talked about with our fall NUIA scores. And I did put those in there for you. And I could also talk like Todd did about like the data over a long period of time, because we have been doing the NUIA for as long as I've been here. This is my 10th year. So we've been doing it for a long time. So it is really nice for us to be able to have a consistent assessment that we can look at those trends. And I talked about this at admin team, and I actually had sent Todd a message and said, okay, so you're seeing the same thing I am, because I had to look twice. Like, we're seeing scores that, I mean, there are definitely some pockets, and I think I highlighted for you our 4th grade math as a cohort. That's a lower score. And so we are really targeting that particular population of students with some pretty heavy math interventions. But overall, when I looked at that, I was expecting lower scores. So when I look back 2 years ago, I'm noticing the same thing as Todd. Our scores for the fall are at or even a little bit higher than they were in 2018 and 2019. So that's just interesting for us as kind of, I like to think of us as data geeks a little bit, but that's interesting for us to kind of see, okay, why? So it'll be interesting. I am a fan of winter testing. Not all principals are, but the reason why I am is I think it's a nice pulse check for us. And we can kind of see, okay, are our kids kind of following the path that we thought they would be following at this point in the year, late January, early February, just to kind of see if we're on the right track or do we need to shift some interventions. So I think that's important because sometimes if we wait until late May or early June, it's late, you know, so even though it does add another level of testing that the state does not require of us at the elementary level, we do that winter testing, so we can make some shifts as necessary. Again, that fourth grade math at 44%, we do really want to beef that up. So that is something that we are targeting. And we have redesigned, I've talked to you about that in past months, we've redesigned our interventions during the day. So we do have, I feel like, more solid interventions in place for them, both math and reading. And then I just kind of want to reach out about a couple of community partnerships that we've had this fall. So one of them being, I gave you a couple pictures, but our Wing 1 folks have been studying space. That's grades 1 and 2, some experiential things they've been doing. They've just kind of done a lot of work using that theme. If you go back to like years ago when we did thematic teaching, they've kind of been doing some of that where they take a topic and then they incorporate math and they incorporate science and they incorporate reading and writing. So they've been doing a lot of that, and they've also been trying to partner with the community. So they've taken some field trips, and then their culminating event that they were so excited about was these lunar landers that they created. And you probably heard of this project before, where they have to design something that can fall from really high in the air, and they place eggs in them. And those eggs are their astronauts, and they hope that their design that they've created a blueprint for will survive the landing. So CMP, Central Maine Power, was willing to come one day on a nice sunny day, and they brought their large bucket truck and they dropped they really got into it, the line. And they dropped all of those from 45 feet in the air. And so the kids had a blast watching that. And then they came back inside and then they did a writing activity. They teamed up with their partners that they had worked with, and they were like, okay, let's write about why. Like, why did yours survive and why did ours not? So it was just a great culminating project. And in the midst of all the things going on, I thought it would be important to share that with you. They had planned to do a family stargazing night last Friday night as part of their culminating activity too. Fort Knox was willing to open up their field area, their picnic area, and the teachers were all just kind of volunteering their time in that wing to go there that night and invite families to come. And they were going to talk about constellations and what they mean and do some storytelling. But of course, as you all know, it was raining really hard that night. So we had to cancel, but they do plan on rescheduling for the spring. So, and then I did also share with you about the Leaf Man project in Mr. Cilia's class. That was a fun little project. We've been using the Miles Lane trails a lot this fall, which has been great to get the kids outside and writing in nature, studying nature. So, and all of our grades have been using the trails, but I did highlight that third grade class. And then we have our Little Bucks SEL program that I wanted to share with you. In the past, we've done after-school programming through a Title I project, and we've focused on academics, reading and math primarily. And this year, Mrs. Dakin and I could both attest to the fact that we really felt we needed to shift our focus, and with Evelyn's support, we have designed a social-emotional after-school program and self-regulation skills. And so we're using some curriculum that the state of Maine has put out for free, and it's called SEL for Me, or for Maine, and also the zones of regulation. And we've got teachers that have agreed to be part of this program, and we'll be starting that November 30th. So we are targeting only about 24 students school-wide at Miles Lane. And we're hoping to incorporate some of those things at Jewett during the school day, because it is too long of a day for our younger kiddos at this time. And that's my report. One thing I want to highlight in our enrollment, just to kind of point out and bring to your attention, is we have a really large kindergarten class this year. And I say really large. We had a larger one years ago. I think they're high schoolers now, like 100 in a couple of grade levels. But for us, over the past 6 years or so, this is our biggest class. And so it was 89 when I wrote this. We have a new student starting tomorrow, so it's 90. But it's a big kindergarten class. So that's been great, but those classes are full. So I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that as we move along, that that's much bigger than the numbers that you see at Miles Lane. Does anybody have any questions? I talk really fast, so.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathy.
Evening, everyone. We are pleased to announce that we have been working on an enrichment program to come back for the spring. We've been talking with Molly Brosnan to incorporate the pottery room and get that out for community use. We're also looking at bringing back our main driving dynamics. We're going to take things kind of slow, see where we're at. We don't want to stress out our custodians, and we want to be sure that everybody's following the masking rules and everything. But we will be looking to get some advertising out about that soon. We already have people calling in asking if they can sign up. So our new secretary is working out well, and we just got our passwords to our catalog website. So you should be seeing more information on that really quickly. There's a lot of stuff going on in the adult ed world. HiSET has been bought by PSI. And one of the things that PSI is known for is really strict but good remote proctoring. So one of the things I suspect you'll see in the next year is remote proctoring for HiSET testing from home. It hasn't got there yet, but they are doing it in other states. So we will keep you apprised of how that's going to look. But that will be my first suspicion that that will be coming quickly. There is a state proposal going through. It is in the planning stages, but they are looking to put in an adult education person now in each of the community colleges. In our county, the only community college is Washington, and they will be taking the point on that. If the funding comes through, the community colleges and adult ed are working together statewide to see this happen. For Hancock County will be a small part with 3 other hubs for Eastern Maine Community College. If that comes through, that will be entirely funded. It will not come from the districts at all, and will be funded for 1 to 2 years. And their job will be to funnel people to adult ed before they drop out, when they start seeing them struggling, and hopefully catching them even the semester before they start a course in which they struggle, so that their goal is to keep students in the community colleges. And the final highlight on this is the state office is using college transitions money to do a very large marketing program over the next year, to get the awareness out that it isn't just for college, it's also for career prep, to retain employment or obtain it, for upskilling. And as part of that, they're going to be giving our hub an additional $43,000 to work on our goals for Maine College and Career. So it will no longer be Maine College Transitions, it would be Maine College and Career Access. And they really want to get the word out to people that if you have a chance to upskill on the job and you can't quite make it, and the example I have is we have someone who wants to move into artificial intelligence, which is quite a promotion for her. Her math skills weren't quite there. And we have her almost ready to enter that employer paid training so that she can bump her skills up and move to the next level. So part of that money that will be coming to us will be individual campaigning for our own counties. And that the fiscal agent for that is Washington County and RSU 24, because they were receiving monies before. But we will be working as our 7 programs as a hub to see that happen. We'll also be promoting, be able to use some of the money to fund teachers for that. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Jen. Next, we've got Jen.
And I have gifts. You're gonna have to get them at the end. All right, so we've had a lot going on in the Inspire office. I have a couple things I'll just share with you, a few examples at different grade levels. One is we were able to do our first tour of a site where we filmed a visit that we're going to prepare it into a video that can be shared with students. That can be done at any level. Our first one was to the shovel making factory over in Frankfurt. The company that donated the shovels last winter, I reached out to them late in the season last year and they said, get back to us in the fall. So We did, and they were very kind about giving us a tour around the facility that we were able to record. So we're experimenting with this idea of doing these for any class or club or whatever that might be interested, and doing them either live or recorded. So if it's live, obviously students can ask questions. And then if it's recorded, we'll just, be able to condense them and make them available online for the appropriate time. So we're hoping that when the snow flies, which a little bit of snow got on these tonight on the way over here, but when it really starts to pile up, we'll be able to share the recording with the students so they can see how the shovels that they use on the playground were made. And that led us to starting to research other companies where we could do this. We've reached out to Hinckley Yacht this week. Jordan went today up to the University of Maine to do a preliminary tour that we think we're going to try to film some educational sites as well. And so we're going to keep working on that. At Bucksport Middle School, we were able to do the Skills for Success previously, and then she and I were each able to visit with a classroom to cover a period last 2 weeks ago. We were able to extend what the students had started in collecting career ideas and have a nice conversation with some middle school students. So getting to the point where they're starting to recognize, oh, you're the one who came to my class. So putting that together for them. I was able to make a connection this week with Jen Scala, who teaches publications here at the high school. And she had 2 students who came as mentors for the yearbook club at the middle school starting today, and they want to be regular contributors. So this will be a nice opportunity to connect the schools, that, as has happened in the past with other teams, but that'll be good to have that underway. And I've been in touch with Amy Bowles at HCTC. One thing we've realized is they don't have paper materials to be able to show what the programs are. And so I'm working with her to come up with some templates so that we can have these materials and then they can be shared with our middle school and high school students and families. And we're looking at some ways that we may do a public event with her later this winter. So that's an exciting development. And I guess the other thing would be FAFSA night. So we were able to support the guidance office where they always have their FAFSA workshops to help the seniors with the paperwork for financial aid, but we were able to do some extra promotion and add some incentives, and they saw a greater turnout for several different reasons, but at their second night. So they went from 3 families the first night to 13 the second night. So we're glad to see that the FAFSA process is underway for the seniors. And last, we have had a delivery of bucks. I may have shown you a buck last spring that we gave them out at Step Up to the upcoming 1st, 2nd, and 3rd and 4th grade classes. And the new ones came. So today we were able to give all the new students, and there are a lot of them. I didn't count the total, but we had a bag for each grade, and they all got called down to the lobby, and we had our Aspire buck there to give them their bucks. And so now all the kids at Miles Lane have the buck, and the tag that we've attached says the Aspire buck encourages you to notice careers in school and everywhere you go. So the buck shows up in the videos that we make in the bingo and other activities that we're providing. So hopefully they'll start to see them more often around their school. We have some going out to teachers this week. And so I brought them all so that you can all have your Aspire buck as well. So I will pass those out. Anyone have any questions for me?
Questions for Jen?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen.
You're welcome. So they are very,
They're a hot commodity.
they really are.
Yeah.
We put them out in the central office and you already have one.
One per person,
That's right.
one per person.
Well, after that denial, we'll go on to Jim Morrell to round up our administrative.
Mr. Morrow. Comes from behind the wall.
Same where deck normally is, which is behind the scenes, right? So quick update for you this month, really this month is November. That's the most productive month in technology history. As any of you have been working with us, just don't look at the sign out front of the high school.
Not December yet.
That's right, it's not December yet. So as you hear everyone presenting, we got NUIA testing, we've got updates, we got students, we got remote activities, we got people patching and helping out. Basically shows that we've been able to maintain the equipment that we have in advance, which is great. Now what we're doing is systems. We talked to the finance committee today. We have a new financial system coming in July 1, possibly a time clock system coming in at the same time. So we've got a lot of background work to do along the ways there. At the same time, we are maintaining how we manipulate devices, working with all the departments in the school. And that's really what we have. The big project that we're going to see over Christmas break is we'll be issuing photo ID badges, which have RFID technology in them. So in theory, staff will be able to use them for different functions. The first function will be, if you go to any of our copiers, you have to log in. You'll be able to swipe your badge and you'll be into your copy. Doesn't seem like a big step, but it's the first time we've used an ID to make it tangible so that you want to carry it every day rather than just being a requirement or having it hang from the belt or the shirt or whatever it is. So we want to make sure those IDs are useful, and that'll proceed further. Any staff using the lunch line, things along those lines. So that badge will be useful. So we'll put that over break. We're also going to streamline how we do some of our accounting of staff in our printing system, again, the copier. So we'll be working that over the holiday break. So that's the next big system coming online, then the finance and the time clock system. So there's always plenty going on, and as long as there's nothing critical, then it keeps us pretty happy. Any questions or concerns? The high school devices are going out to some, I know, did your son get his device yet?
I don't think so.
We've got about 40 of them out right now to test to make sure everything's going well, but they're stacked in there. I know Mr. Tripp's been down to see them, but they're waiting to go out to students. We're getting some feedback from students just before we deploy 360 devices and have to change one thing. So I thought that was probably a smooth way to do it.
Are you going to incorporate these RFID badges into the new time tracking system?
Yeah, so the plan is, I'm glad you brought that up. We're actually sending one of our badges to the prospective company that we're negotiating with, and they're going to make sure it works for their system. So hourly staff will be swiping badges.
Excellent.
And again, it makes that one badge rather than carrying a time badge and an ID and something else.
Any other questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim.
Good, thank you.
Next, we move on to old business, of which there is none. So we can go to new business. We've got resignations and retirements.
Yes, I've got some resignations for you. Support personnel, Herbie Walters, custodian at EMS. Monica Page was a nurse for us for maybe 3 weeks, but she was able to get back into her old job, so good for her. It's actually a positive thing, and she'll stay on as a substitute as needed. Laura Lugden, we talked about earlier, as an adjustment, EMS Title 1 Ed Tech 3, and Linda Silsby, food service. And under co-curricular, John Gagan is stepping back away from indoor track as assistant coach.
Geez, Aunt Linda's been in the kitchen since I was born.
That's a big day.
I would look for a motion to accept the resignations.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignations as a block.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the resignations as presented. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have nominations.
Nominations under support personnel. I have Elaine Maury, custodian. Kayanne Rose, food service. Co-curricular coaches, and I apologize. This was an error on my part. We usually do our winter coaches in the spring just because they run summer clinics. We overlooked that, so I'm bringing it to you now. Laura Lugden, BHS cheering. Brianna Youngblood, BHS cheering volunteer. Larry Dees, BHS boys varsity basketball. Mike County, BHS boys JV basketball. Tyler Pye, BHS boys basketball volunteer. Sean Keniston, BHS girls varsity basketball. Lexi McGinnis, BHS girls JV basketball. Matt Morrison, BHS indoor track head coach. Mike Garcelon, BHS Assistant Indoor Track Coach. David Gross, BHS Wrestling Head Coach. Sean Costigan, BHS Wrestling Assistant Coach. Lester Cowan, BMS Girls A Team Basketball. Jessica Carter, BMS Girls B Team Basketball. And Nicholas Slosher, BMS Boys B Team Basketball. And also on transportation, we have a new bus driver that's joined us, and that's Kelly Mirren. That's all I have.
That's all, huh?
That's it.
And just so I make sure, this Slosher, did we hear his name?
Nicholas Slosher, yes, he was the last one I read underneath the boys basketball in middle school.
All right, there was quite a list, so I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure we had everybody
I
here.
think I got everybody.
Okay, good. Are we okay with this being as a block? Yes, all right, I would look for motion. Abby,
I'd like to make a motion to accept these nominations as a block.
Second,
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of those presented? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we've got report out and discussion on recommendation for COVID protocols for winter activities.
Yes. Well, first of all, and Carol, I'm gonna start right off. We nominated 2 wrestling coaches. We're gonna do wrestling. Okay, but that was good, and
It's a good tip off.
I just wanted to throw that in there, but I really appreciate David's letter, and I couldn't agree more. I think it's, all of these activities are critical to have for kiddos, and I will tell you on a state level, I've been working with the NPA, the DOE, the HHS, CDC, and to a person, everybody agrees, we've got to find a way to keep these kids active. It's so important and healthy. And we've been back and forth with different discussions, but what I presented in my report to you and my recommendation is that all sports and activities will be played. The recommendation from the NPA Sports Medicine Group is that masking for all sports, with the only exception being swimming when they're in the water. Okay, doesn't really affect us. We don't have a swim team, but occasionally we do have kiddos that will join other teams. That's probably not appropriate. Okay. Talk about pool testing. The NPA highly recommends it. CDC highly recommends it. From my perspective, it is absolutely critical. For wrestling, it is an expectation. They had conversations about requiring vaccination for wrestling. They backed away from that, but they said kiddos will need to wear masks and be part of pool testing. Okay, the reason for that is wrestling is considered a high-risk sport by the CDC. Obviously, there's a lot of body contact. You're not going to avoid that. That's wrestling. That's the way it is. But in order to still do high-risk sport, they felt they needed to put that higher level of expectation on it. I honestly, in my opinion, think that should be applied universally to all kids in extra co-curricular activities. It's not a difficult process to go through, and it's a safety valve for everybody. Locally, concessions, if offered, will be done in a separate area. So there'll be no eating in the gymnasium. All spectators will be masked, all participants masked, referees, everybody masked. The band, if they're going to play, I know Mr. Ward is working with Mr. Neslucin about moving them up into the balcony weight room area. But band would be required to wear a mask unless they're playing their instrument, but their instruments will have to have bell covers on them. I believe we already have those purchased. Transportation does not change. Masking at all times, transportation. If there are schools that don't follow along with these recommendations, then if there are more expectations, it's like going to Granny's house. Go to Granny's house, take your shoes off, you take your shoes off. You go to someone's gym and they say, put a mask on, you put a mask on. That's just the way it's gonna be. If there's a district that doesn't want to wear masks, it's at their own peril. We are not required to play. Okay, our expectation is we're gonna mask up, we mask up. Part of the reason why I'm making this recommendation, hopefully this will change over time. It's easier to back away than it is to start without and add in after you've had a number of infections and a number of challenges. So other than that, everything else will hold true as far as sports season as it did the fall. Same quarantine expectations, everything. Nothing changes.
Yes, Abby.
I just have one question around pool testing. I feel like we may have asked it. I can't remember the answer though. Let's say the three of us are in a pool.
Yeah.
And we test positive in our pool.
Mhm.
We have to be individually tested, but that takes time to get those results, right?
We have the results usually within 24 hours from the original test. And we
So-
test the next day.
Do the three of us, okay, so you get the pool test in 24 hours, then you test us the next day. Do we have to go home to quarantine? Well, we're still hanging out in school until we figure out which one of us, unless somebody has symptoms. Okay,
Right.
somebody had asked me that in the community, and that was my understanding.
Yeah.
But they said, no, I think if you have a positive pool, everybody's gotta go home, and I said,
That's one of the misnomers. that got
yeah, I
presented.
really wanted to clarify that point. I didn't know if I was misunderstanding. And I did say, of course, if the three of us are testing positive and you have a cough, you're not gonna be able to stay, you've gotta go, but just even if you didn't test positive, you'd not be able to be here with a cough, you know? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
And we do have kiddos. I mean, it is possible to have a cough and not have COVID,
Oh, of course,
right?
of
But
course.
that's the beauty of pool testing, because you're checked every week.
Yep. Oh, yeah, there's still colds and everything going around.
The individual test only takes 15 minutes. So they stay, like, here where we've done it, we have them separated, they stay in the gymnasium, wait for 15 minutes so they get the results.
And then they would retest them right there.
We test them right there, and then
Perfect.
we have them separated, so, and once, if they're negative, they go back to class, if they're positive, we isolate them and then have somebody connect them.
Okay,
It's really an efficient process.
my kids love it. They look forward to their pool testing day. Isn't that weird? They should be your pool testing, like, poster children.
Yeah.
They're like Wednesdays, that's when we do it.
Big day Wednesday.
Great. I don't know, they must like picking their noses or something.
Who knows, but, the younger kids are really comfortable doing. It really
Yeah,
doesn't
they
bother
are.
them. I've actually participated the first week. I was brought into it, and everybody was great. People handled it, and doing the testing was nerve wracking when somebody would come in and test, and then you set them over there and say, we'll give you 15 minutes. Then Mr. Tripp would have to walk over to them. They never knew what he was gonna say. But people were wonderful, and like I said, out of all those tests, we've only come up with 4 asymptomatic. Good. So any questions about my recommendations? I outlined it all in my report. All the guidelines are there.
I gotta ask the question just because I wasn't paying attention, I think.
Okay.
So let's say, since we're talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
So I'm in the wrestling meet, we all have to do that.
That's correct.
I'm going to go onto the mat. Am I wearing a mask?
And your headgear, yes, both.
And that's safe. Nobody's gonna, I'm not gonna have the mask that I've currently got on.
No, I wouldn't, you can't have anything.
Oh,
in
it's
wrestling.
regulation mask.
No, because wrestling has requirements. That's why you see kiddos with long hair have to put them up underneath.
Yeah.
You can't have things hanging down. It's a safety issue.
Okay.
We did talking to the sports medicine committee. They did their research. Pennsylvania has been required masks for the previous year. And that was successful for them,
And so there's a mask of some sort that's safe for wrestling.
just like I'm wearing.
Okay. That one.
Just a year, Lou.
Okay.
Is it gonna be inconvenient? Yeah. Is it gonna get time? I mean, I can imagine if someone puts a crossface on you, you're gonna get a fat, it's gonna come over here. Well,
I just want to make sure somebody doesn't get strangled.
we certainly do not want that.
That could be, not good.
No.
All right.
I think that most masks are designed that they'll break before that eventuality.
Yeah, mine just happens to be something special, but
Yeah, that's different.
mine's a Garrett. Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood this correctly. Wrestling, you have to participate in pool testing.
Yes.
Other sports, you are encouraged to participate in
My
pool testing.
recommendation to this board is considering it, requiring it for everybody.
Requiring it, so that is what you're
Treat
suggesting.
everybody the same.
Yeah, because I
I
mean,
think that
when you think about other indoor sports, they may be not as in contact as wrestling, but they're still a lot in contact.
there's gonna be contact, and you also have to understand that outside venues may have higher expectations than we do. Okay,
Hazmat suits.
not quite that high, but UMaine has a requirement that everybody's vaccinated and will wear a mask.
Yep.
It's a given, and if we want to use that venue and outdoor track, we saw what outdoor track was when you don't have the indoor track, you know. So, and the MPA recommendations are gonna say that if the venue has a lower expectation than the schools, they will have to step up to the level of the school.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's not an excuse for the school going, oh, we're gonna go to XYZ arena.
No masks
no
today.
mask
Yeah.
here. No, that's not how it works.
Good.
I will be very honest with you, this may change over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. This has been a very much a moving target, but it's solidified as much as it can right now. I feel comfortable recommending treating all athletes the same.
Great.
All coaches the same, everybody's treated the same. Obviously highly recommending vaccination. That is the best protection. However, that's not a reality for everybody, so do the mask.
Masking, pool testing.
Yeah. And we're fortunate, we're one of the schools that has the ability to do pool testing for everybody. Not every school does. So that gives our kiddos an advantage and a safety level.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for final word from the university system. If you don't have proof of vaccination, you have to provide a negative antigen test within 72 hours to be eligible. We're asking them, what exactly are you looking for? Can we use pool testing? Because that's what pool testing is. That's up in the air right now. We're waiting for final answer on that. And how are we going to certify that? Are we going to be able to have the principal, you know, have an affidavit that says, with students on this list, I certify are fully vaccinated?
Yeah.
I don't have a question.
It was more flippant, like, it's just gonna be like, are you sure we don't win automatically if some school doesn't want to wear their mask?
And how they're gonna handle that is if the ADs obviously have to talk, and if things can't be worked out, then just, you don't participate in that game.
Right,
That's-
right.
You're free to schedule somebody else and move on.
I mean, it's entirely possible that one team could maneuver all the way up to, you know, some sort of, I'm sure they have knockout rounds, you know, at the championship
Playoffs.
levels and, yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm just messing up my thing.
Knockout rounds.
But, you know, I mean, somebody, I mean, it's possible, and then, you know, well, figure it out.
And then, you know, what happens at the MPA sanctioned tournaments, that's a different set. So what we're talking about here is what's gonna happen at our regular season, what we can control.
Right.
And for indoor track, where those are held, pretty much at the university, correct?
It's at the university.
So we're going to be using their rules, whether we like it or not.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That's everybody vaccinated, right? Everybody vaccinated and masked.
Or have to prove
With the
a
test.
negative antigen test within 72 hours.
All right.
And Abby can tell you how that works.
I did not get into Canada this year
Yeah.
because my PCR test didn't come back for 82 hours.
Oh,
So
It
it's
works
hard.
great.
Yeah,
And that was before testing was like testing is booked now. Like that was before we were having a lot of cases and now it's hard to even get a test. So. Which is another benefit of pool testing, because you've already got it.
and these rules would apply for both high school and middle school.
Great.
And they are parallel with the recommendation from the middle school superintendents and also the high school superintendents for both Penobscot Valley and Hancock County.
So the rules that we're going to be voting on right now include mandatory pool testing. all.
That's up to you. That's my recommendation. I put it in your hands as the board to make a decision. We have it available to us. We know it's effective. We know it protects all participants
And it protects the team.
and protects the team. And if you're thinking about as you go into competitions, I mean, basketball, you don't have the same numbers you do on a football team, and we were losing, quite a few kiddos in football on a couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You could lose half your basketball team.
I mean, if you're a member of a team, you work as a team.
That's the point.
And if you're not there, you're letting the team down. And this is a way to help make sure that you're there. Keep your team going. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and this, as a participant in pool testing, if you're a close contact within the school, it doesn't count for outside the school close contact. But for inside, and you are, that's an exemption. You can still go to school, you can still participate.
Well, it worked very well for the Boy Scout. And so I'm all good with it. I don't know, is everyone else?
I like
okay
the
with it?
idea personally. I think, I like the idea of protecting all our kids. And, I don't know, I really don't see a lot of negatives for the pool testing. So I like that we're treating all athletes the same as
I
well.
feel more comfortable that way.
Yeah, I don't like singling out one sport over another.
So then we'll have that be part of the proposed school.
If someone were to make a motion, what would be the best way to word this motion, do you think?
Off the recommendations as outlined, which I provided you in your
Oh,
report.
We have
okay.
to train somebody that's.
I know,
Not Scott.
Scott's been doing it for years, so he's pretty well trained with that, but.
I would like you to make a motion to accept the recommendations for COVID protocols for winter activities as outlined in the report.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the proposal?
I will ask you, and that does include pool testing.
Does include pool testing.
Perfect.
And Dave?
Did that change anyone's
All
mind?
right, that is unanimous.
Okay, so I have a motion by Abby and a second by Peter. And all in favor of that, so.
Okay.
We can move forward and kids can start enjoying their seasons, which is good. I'm so happy that we can have.
Hopefully they get to the knockout rounds. That's the one.
Knockout round.
All right here, just keep it all right in here, knockout round.
You did say spectators. I'm gonna be able to go to wrestling meets. Is that what you said?
Yes, you're good.
Okay,
Meets.
thank you.
The only thing we're going to have to do is, and we're gonna have to make sure we can't have overcrowding.
What?
Overcrowding,
Yes.
and you've been to enough wrestling meets to know that sometimes they'll pack the gym.
Get there early, secure your spot.
Oh, that right, Detour Memorial Tournament can fill that gym fast.
Very quickly, and that's where the athletic directors are gonna have to work and limit that. And there may be a case like in that situation, only home crowd can come to it, that type of thing, but it's gonna be case by case, or sometimes we're gonna have a wrestling meet, or it could be just a 3-team meet. It's not an issue.
Can't that be broadcast? Isn't it broadcast like live or anything like that?
Yeah, we can, as many events as we can, we will put on YouTube, but there are like some basketball games, we may have to limit the crowd. There are other games, we're gonna have to invite people to come. Okay, so,
You just get some wrestling fans.
yeah, so it's gonna have to be, it's a case by case basis, and we're gonna have to leave that up to the.
I mean, it would make sense to me that if we were gonna have a basketball game and we knew that the spectators were going to be excessive, that we would not have the band there.
But the band's not gonna be even in the bleachers.
Oh, they don't count.
Well, we're gonna put them up in
The old band room.
the old band room.
So that doesn't, it isn't the old rules that they had last time. There's so many people inside of the building.
There's none of those.
And they
rooms.
counted over here too.
At this time.
No,
Those are all gone. You can
Yay.
let go of some of those things.
Good. All right. Okay. All right. Now we can move on to first reading.
Yep, you have 2 policies and a procedure. We discussed GBGB workplace bullying last month's meeting. There was conversation about that and some thoughts as to this is putting us in a position we're gonna have to be policing a lot of things we can't control. So we put that back into the policy committee for more discussion. I did have conversation with Ann Chapman, who was the actual original author of the policy. Her comment to me was, I apologize, this is not the best policy because it's a whole law, the language of the law. So we talked about it and she provided us language that we put in there to help define the boundaries of the school. We have it in twice in the policy. I think the policy committee could speak to it. I think it met the expectations of what the board is looking for. As far as the community use schools facilities, that's an update. When outside groups were using our facilities, renting our facilities, we were only charging them $25 an hour for the custodial. Well, that's all overtime, and I guarantee you, we're paying our custodians more at time and a half than what we were charging people. So we brought forth a recommendation to make changes.
2013, the original adoption of that policy was, so those values haven't been updated since then, so we just updated those to reflect more current labor rates.
And the third item is the remote learning procedures, as was discussed. We've been working with the policy committee with that, come up with a written procedure. Folks were comfortable with that, talked with the union, talked with administrators. That's all workable for us, but my recommendation is do not make that policy, make that a procedure. And that way, if we need to make adjustments, it can be done more quickly than if we have to go through 2 readings of policy, which is going to take at least 2 months.
Do we have any discussion that we want on any of these items? I would like to say that I thank you for taking that agenda, the GBGB back and reworking that.
Yeah, no, that was a good find, and again, it's talking with Mr. Boothby and working with the lawyers. As they said, it's a poorly written law. Policy that's not maybe as good as could be, should be. But I think hopefully this language that they have added in here does kind of shows where our limits are, and that we're not responsible for policing every person in the community that may chime in on a website or a social media site or.
It would not be the first time that Augusta has done something that didn't make sense.
What? Could be good intentions, and just didn't come out right. So anyways.
The only thing I'd like to just say on that is I have no fears of this administration abusing this policy. But if it had been prior administration, I would have had great reservations that it would have been abused. And it would be my expectation that any future administration be of the well understanding of what our mission and vision statement is, where we deliberately encourage our administration to engage and listen to the community and parents. Because that's really the foundation of how we work here.
To agree with you. And as we look to work through the policy committee, I think that's a vision and a goal is to write policies that outlive all of us.
Yes.
You know, being applicable as much as possible.
And at some point in time, us old people on this side of the fence aren't going to be.
Well, I've got what, 30.
Yeah, well,
30, 29
you're going to
years.
be here forever.
They hit millets.
You hit millage.
They hit millets. Yeah.
Yes, Ed.
I just want to make a comment about the remote instruction guidelines. I am not a fan of remote learning in general. I'm so glad we're in person, but this is nice. You guys did a really good job. It's everything that, or what I've seen, everything I can think of that kids should have been doing, but it's nicely written, that, you know, like you need to be there with your monitor on and, you know, prepared to learn. You have to have, you know, stable internet connection, which I believe we can assist with if we need to.
We could try to. There's some
Try
spots
to,
in
I
this
know there's
district
some,
that-
but you know, you have to have like some sort of a plan. Students can, you know, get help from their parents as far as technology, but you're really supposed to let them do it. No recording and stuff. I think it seems pretty thorough. So I just want to say good job.
All right, so how about we have a motion for the two policies first?
Can we do that on a first reading?
Yeah.
To accept as the first reading.
Oh, okay.
So Abby,
I would like to make a motion to accept the first reading of policy GBGB workplace bullying and policy KF-R community use of school facilities administrative procedure as outlined here.
we have a motion and Peter has a second for us. All those in favor of the two policies? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have the procedure, which this is going to be the accepting the procedure.
Accepting the procedure, and that's just straight out, and that's
Abby,
I would like to make a motion to accept the remote learning procedures presented here.
second. Peter has a second. So we got a motion and a second to accept those procedures. All those in favor?
I have a question.
Oh, I could. Yep.
By accepting it this way, accept the document, is that gonna preclude us from being able to change the document, you being able to change the document as it
it's
is?
a procedure. You're just accepting.
We don't need to put any language in it to talk, okay.
Just as a procedure, it's not being accepted as a policy. Once it
I didn't
becomes a
want to just,
policy-
I didn't want to limit us, that's all.
No.
Because I know that things can change and to give you guys the latitude, you need to amend.
That's why I distinguished it as a procedure.
Good, thank you.
Okay. So back again, we got a motion by Abby, a second by Peter. All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we've got second reading policy. We've got JKAA, physical restraint and seclusion. JKAAR, physical restraint and seclusion procedure. And IHBAC, child fine. This all sounds like something straight out of like a horror movie.
We like it not to be, they're there to protect it, so it's protecting students.
All right. So we've all seen these before. This is just the second reading. Has there been any changes to these?
No changes at all.
No changes, so I would look for motion.
I would like to make a motion to accept, is it the same thing? Do I need to do the two policies and then the procedure?
Like, these are all policies.
Okay,
All
even though
three of
it
them are
says
good.
B is a
Yes.
procedure,
Yeah,
okay.
this has a
It's a
different,
policy that includes a procedure, got it.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the second reading of policies JKAA, use of physical restraint and seclusion, JKAA-R, physical restraint and seclusion procedure, and IHBAC, child find, as outlined in our documents.
Peter? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the second reading of policies? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we got calendar and announcements.
Curriculum Committee, December 16th, 6 o'clock. The Policy Committee, December 7th. 5:30. At 5:30. You notice it's bold and under.
I didn't know if that was directed to anybody individually, but I'll take it as such.
Finance
Put a
Committee,
line under it.
December 21st at 5:30. School Board meeting, December 21st at 6 o'clock. Facilities Committee, January 13th, next year, 2022. So, And the Aspire Committee will meet December 8th, 2021.
Do you have a change in time due to our presenter?
Okay.
5:30 start for December 8th.
So noted. Okay, and the Aspire Committee will be presenting to next month's Economic Development Committee.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, you're on the agenda.
Okay, good. I haven't seen the agenda.
Heather, you had a,
Yes, the ad hoc committee meeting, are we gonna meet and resolve?
I think we will. I think we'll wait for, have a conversation with Mr. Frazier
Yeah,
as around his availability.
it shouldn't take too long. We've got approved for a vision there.
Got that. And just a reminder, December is typically the focus of the meeting is just wrap up a little bit of business, but it is focused on the evaluation of your superintendent.
and you will be receiving a Google form from Sue, and we have to get it back to her by December 9th.
Check your email.
Check your email, even if you're horrible at it like I am. Please submit that to her on time so that she can tabulate the results for us.
I
And
think I feel comfortable doing it this year.
good,
Yeah, it's been a full year.
you've been around for a little while.
Yeah, didn't feel comfortable the first time, but
I
now
was
I
gonna say,
really,
last year it was like, what,
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
Well, I have experience with Jim from making his sandwiches at Tozer's. so
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
I
have
can
any.
evaluate him. He's
I
he's a
didn't
good
have
guy.
any, so for me, it was like I'm meeting everybody, whatever.
typically then you excuse the administrators from that meeting as their
yes,
holiday gift, and unless they want to insist on being,
I think that sounds like a nice holiday.
that's okay with it.
Merry Christmas. Well, there we go. And it's time to adjourn this. Abby?
I'll finish it off. I like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Oh, wait, we had, no, okay. I was just gonna say.
Please let me go home.
I apologize, I just wanted to make sure.
All right. I think that was unanimous. But unanimous.
Are you still interested in joining purple?